Welcome to Gregorian Chat.
Hello and welcome to the podcast.
Willkommen.
Goodness me, fell over in the first couple of seconds. This is episode 28 of Gregorian Chat.
28?
Bringing to you that real Catholic
That's how old
banter,
I am.
that fresh and fruity goodness.
I'm 28.
Really?
Episode 28. Yeah.
Man, it's still a while before I'm 28.
Okay, I get it.
No, 1 year, 2 years. Anyway, welcome to this episode. We hope you enjoyed last week's podcast with Dr. Jane Silloway-Smith.
Dr. Jane.
If you haven't seen it yet, then go and watch that because it was about euthanasia and assisted suicide.
Very topical.
And a little cute 4-month-old Charlie.
Good old
Who
Charlie.
joined us for the chat.
Yeah, it was very good. But this week, what are we talking about, Dom?
We are talking about the free speech debate. The free speech debate.
We're talking
right?
about free speech.
Well done, you understood the pun.
How to put it in the freezer.
Now, before we talk about the tea for a little bit, I'll just say there are three main headlines and kind of stories that in the news this week that have sparked our interest in this topic. The first one is the protests that are happening in Charlottesville, in the US.
Real tough stuff, man.
The second one is there has been a request by the Auckland University Students Association to disaffiliate Prolife group in Auckland.
And any other group that have similar ideologies.
from AUSA. So basically, you know, it's a free speech issue.
Yes.
In a sense. The last one is we'll just touch on it very briefly. Is the fact that Mike Hosking has been chosen to moderate the political debate between parties later on. People are, saying he shouldn't be speaking.
Yes.
For
So
asking the questions.
Yeah, so we've got it kind of left us to this question. It's like there's all these phrases being thrown around, like hate speech and stuff like that. And
stop throwing stuff.
Yeah. How do we as Catholics kind of respond to this?
How do we do it?
Well, a good way of doing that is by drinking tea.
This is a great start and a truth.
What tea have we got this week, Dom?
This week's tea is called Banana Bake.
Banana bake.
Banana Bake. I did kind of get it because I thought it's the kind of tea that I would mention if I was in the store and be like, we should get Banana Bake. And you'd be like, nah.
All right, you think I'd be against
I thought it might be against it.
Well, it smells good.
It does actually. It smells a lot like banana. Let's give it a shot. I'm sure it'll be an appealing tea.
Oh
man, it's definitely a sniffer.
Ooh. Definitely tastes like bananas.
All right, so we might as well not waste any more time. Maybe we'll just crack on straight into it. So Charlottesville. If you don't know, basically what's at the heart of the Charlottesville story, essentially there is a monument set up for a Confederate general in the US called Robert E. Lee. So a lot of people were saying, well, we shouldn't really have statues of Confederate generals in public places of authority now in 2017 because he's a figurehead of the Confederate movement if it was a thing, and it's just not appropriate now because so and so and so. So then a whole bunch of white nationalists, neo-Nazis and Nazis just went down to Charlottesville to, I guess, protest around that statue. They were greeted by counter-protesters who were saying, you guys are Nazis, KKK, and you need to get out of here.
Pretty much.
The result was violence, and one person at least has died.
Yes. Well, I think the person dying was at a later stage. It was it's happened over a few days.
Yeah, disturbing though.
Yes, just horrible.
I don't know if you've had a chance to watch this video that Vice did, and I normally wouldn't watch anything by Vice.
Yeah, just because it gave me work to do.
But I thought it was quite well done.
It's very good.
Just in terms of showing you what's been happening in Charlottesville. Now, this, as we know, this immediately leads into a bunch of different debates. So there's been a lot of videos already which have said, there is no such thing as hate speech. It's just free speech that people don't like.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is in the context of the American Constitution and the First Amendment, which says
something.
It says that basically these are the things the government can't do to people. It can't stop a peaceful protest basically from happening.
Okay.
And things like it can't limit free speech and things like that. Okay, so a lot of people are claiming, no, it's not hate speech.
Yes.
We're just exercising our the First Amendment rights.
I think so. What we need to do is really define what hate speech is, because neither side think they're using hate speech, but then the opposite side think they are. So we were talking to the very good old Father Chris this morning, and he was helping us define a few things.
He hates peach as well.
Yeah,
he prefers apricot.
Pax of peach was a good tea. That was a good tea.
Well, I was talking about this down at teacher with Jess and just kind of saying, by the way, if I have to run out in this episode, I'm sorry, it's because I had to take some laxatives about 5 minutes ago.
This is going to be hilarious. I'll lock the door.
Anyway,
so
I'm going to be running.
So Father Chris was telling us about hate speech, and he said, essentially what hate speech is like, he used an example of sort of saying, Jews are bad. It's like, that's not hate speech. It's an opinion, and you're welcome to think that. However, if you then follow that up with, therefore all Jews must die, that's kind of getting into hate speech. So it's got that. It's got that kind of. It's got to elicit an aggressive action.
So it incites, right? Some kind of hateful action.
Yes, it begins something horrible. So I mean, that's what hate speech is. So I mean, and often we see people using the term hate speech is like sort of like, I disagree with you. I think gay marriage is wrong, or I think euthanasia isn't right, or I think abortion's wrong. Is sort of like, that's hate speech because it's doing harm to my feelings. That doesn't quite make the cut, unfortunately.
That's right.
Because it's too subjective.
So I guess, I mean, it sounds like you're saying that hate speech is tied up with this idea of offence, right? So it's like. Offence alone, somebody taking offence, is not enough to constitute hate speech. No. There actually has to be some kind of, I was trying to research it before, some incitement to, something to actually happen in regards to that belief, right? So for there to be a manifestation of that belief that has a negative effect on the party who is the victim of hate speech. So for instance, I guess a lot of things that have been happening, a lot of the things that people have been accusing Trump of when they call it hate speech would probably more fit into the category of rhetoric surrounding, or rhetoric which helps to build towards hate speech. It supports hate speech, but it isn't necessarily hate speech itself.
Yes, and I think this is where prudence comes involved, because it's kind of like, we all have the freedom of speech, and therefore the problem with freedom of speech is everyone has it. We can all say whatever we want, and we've got the right to use it. However, bananas, bacon bananas.
Yeah. So
however, you don't have the right to, when in a crowded room like a cinema or something, shout fire, and there's no fire, because that's going to cause people to storm out, potentially crush people. That's a bad thing to do, and you can get punished for that. However, if you're in a cinema and you just shout out the word bananas randomly, you've got the right to do that just as much as anyone does. It's a bit ridiculous.
I mean, you're an idiot, but it might ruin a movie. So that's right. And I guess the idea of free speech, there's a lot of talk about freedom nowadays in the sense that you're free from obligation to do this, or you're free to not have people tell you what to do, right? As opposed to that other side of the coin of freedom, which is you are free to do good.
Yes.
Like you always say with, Shakespeare was able to be free with his talent because he had to take the time, I guess, in a way, honing his talent and limiting it, practicing it,
You're limiting himself to make himself freer in a sense. Just like a basketball player or a rugby player, they have to say, okay, I'm not going out every night partying. I'm going to go to training. So hate speech and offence, I guess. So those two things hand in hand, and thinking, okay, let's just clarify these things, because even thinking down the line as a Catholic, to be honest, I think if this kind of idea of hate speech really takes a hold in society, then it could potentially be disastrous for people like ourselves. Yes. As seen yesterday, moving on to away from Charlottesville a little bit towards the pro-life debate on campus here. Because essentially the Prolife Club on campus were accused of hate speech for saying, we shouldn't be killing babies. Yeah. And I think also what we see here is like a promulgation of people holding onto a fence. Holding on to gates and all sorts of other things. Yeah, exactly. But you can take offence, but don't keep it. Yeah, they're being offended, and you saw in a lot of their arguments is pro-life groups all around the world are doing this, and 5 years ago this happened, and they are associating bad things that may have happened in places that aren't Auckland University with the Prolife Club. And so this is what offence can do to you. It's kind of like, wow, that offended me, and that was these people doing it, therefore these people are always bad wherever they are. And so offence is actually warping a reality because you're holding on to this offence thing. Now, this comes into, like, as Christians, what we call to do. We're called to love. Who? Everybody. How? Absolutely and unconditionally. We're called to say, like, Jesus calls us to love our enemies. And who are our enemies? It's the people that offend us. It can be your brother, it can be your sister, it can be, a group on campus.
Yeah.
But we're called to love these people that have offended us. So be offended, and sometimes we need to sit back and say, wow, that really hurt. Maybe talk to a friend about it, go to confession or something like that, talk to a priest. But then go back and love. And so what we saw in that debate was a lot of people that were offended by something tragic that happened to them or to someone they know, and then they were taking it out on somebody else. And so and using hate speech as a way of...
Yeah, and generalizations which really don't help anything. And I think that's been really detrimental to a lot of these stories in the American media, especially, by grouping, either certain groups of people and things like that. I mean, and there's a lot of uproar about the fact that Trump didn't speak out directly against Nazis. But anyway, we'll stay away from that for now. So, but yeah, this idea of, like, as Christians, we're going to be offended because, well, to be honest, like, we're not exactly a popular demographic these days, and increasingly so to be like a Catholic, because we take such radical views on things. So I guess my thing is, like, I can imagine in the not so distant future, if not like by the end of this year, that it's like a lot of the things Catholics do would be counted as hate speech. And so, as Dom said, that we watched Father Mike Schmitz do his video on this, and he said that there's between the point of somebody saying or doing the thing that is offensive to the point of the reaction caused by that, there is a moment there, and that's a choice. So we all have a choice how to react to that. Yes. Now, for a lot of us, we might find that point seems to be kind of bypassed because we don't know how to practice prudence with our speech or our thoughts, right? So if you find that somebody says something and you react immediately all the time, and you're like, I can't help it, that's just who I am. It's like, well, I think you should probably reflect on that and say, why can't I stop myself from reacting in this way? Because as Christians, as you said, like, we are meant to react with charity. Yes.
And also, I think something that's difficult is, like, we're also called to live in the truth.
Exactly.
And just as when you love, when you live in the truth, that means some things are wrong, and we're called to point those things out.
Exactly, especially in relation to free speech, right?
Yeah,
which is what this episode is about.
Yeah, and also, like, when we're called to love, that means by the opposite of that, we're also meant to hate the opposite of love.
That's right.
Which is we're meant to hate sin. So we need to practice this. So it's not a case of like, oh yeah, I'm gonna live in the truth, but I'm not gonna say anything because I might offend someone. So, like, also it means I'm not gonna go out offending people with the truth.
But there's a deeper level of relationship that we need to have as Christians, and I think an analogy I could use is being husbands, right? We have wives. When we started off dating, your first couple of dates, you're not going to be like, yeah, so I'm not really that into the way that you say this or the way you dress, or you don't start by pointing out the flaws, like and hopefully there's not too much to point out at a later date, literally date, but it's like you start off on that level of relationship where it's a lot more surface level. It's all important building those stepping stones in a relationship, but you find that you might not say things then because you want to encourage your then girlfriend, but then when you get married and as you progress through life, or with any relationship with your parents, no, hopefully not, free speech does not come to play here. No, it's like if your spouse is doing something that really annoys you, and that but more than that, you think it's actually detrimental to their life or your relationship, then it's you love them more by bringing that up, right?
Yes.
In a good way, in a charitable way. And it should be, that's the way that we should be with other people.
Yeah. So it's about speaking truth, but charitably.
Exactly.
So like if someone like, you know, your spouse, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your brother, your sister, someone you're living with annoys you, you know, by all means tell them the thing that's annoying you, like charitably and nicely. But then if every time you see them you bring it up, it's kind of like, are you actually bringing truth into the situation, or are you just damaging a relationship? So I mean, we need to be prudent, we need to have that love and charity in what we're doing, but also not letting love be this like light and fluffy thing. It's also a challenge to step up and say, actually no, I'm going to love somebody that's like opposing me. And you know, maybe through that love, you know, they'll be able to see a deeper truth.
That's right.
Because I mean, another thing to remember is, though we are to live as though, you know, everything relies on us, and pray as though everything relies on God, we need to remember that everything does rely on God. We're just here, and so, you know, pray through these things. I remember a while ago, I was working with somebody, and they were really challenging for me in a few of their attitudes and a few of the ways they worked, and I was fully ready to go and rip them a new one, speaking what I thought was the truth.
Okay.
But I decided to be like, okay, actually, I'm gonna pray a rosary beforehand. By the end of the rosary, didn't care about it at all. And so, like, you know, it's about taking that. You know, it was that choice I had. I was offended. I was upset. I was about to go and speak the truth. And I went and said, actually, I'll do it after prayer.
That's right, yeah. And it's something, and the last kind of point in terms of, you've got Charlottesville, the Prolife thing, and Mike Hosking, all right? So I've seen, you know, several Christian friends of mine repost this petition which says, you know, Mike Hosking should not be moderating the political debate because he is far too, you know, partisan to the right wing. And, you know, and it's like, okay, well, that's might be a good cause for people, but you don't need to go posting a post which is like, Mike Hosking is a bag of filth and he should never, you know, like, it's so uncharitable.
Yes.
No matter what you think of the man.
And also probably untrue, you know.
Well, but and even of Trump, right? Like, people, there are so many Christians out there who are like that, like, they would probably be happy to see him get the death sentence, you know? Like, I hate to say it, but like, that is not what we're called to as Christians. Yes, we're called to stand up for righteousness.
Yeah,
but speaking the truth, but you know, like, that's not the truth. You know, like, maybe he does deserve to die. Don't we all deserve to die? Like, right?
That's not. Yeah, it's not about not taking it too far, not letting our offence take over our rational selves. That's
right. Like, so being prudent and charitable with your truth, and I guess, like, when you look at the Charlottesville thing and you think, okay,
depressing, man.
No, like, something needs to happen here. There are literally Nazis on the street, and it's like, well, okay, well, the way to deal with that isn't necessarily by responding with acts of violence. And watching this documentary, I can say, like, I've seen some of the footage of, it's like, okay, well, the Nazis are carrying shields and batons, but the people on the other side, who I guess would be the old left or whatever you want to call them, are also provoking, right? Because they're standing up, I guess, for what they would see as a righteous thing. But it's like, you know, and then you've got people saying white lives matter, and the other side, black lives matter. And I was talking with my good friend Aaron this morning about this, and he said, well, you know, like, the difference is not in saying, well, because, you know, all lives matter, but that each life matters.
I guess what you're saying is it's not so black and white.
That was a racy joke. You got a bit of something stuck in your tooth as well.
I think it's probably some of the teeth.
But yeah, I mean, so, like, I guess you could go on forever about this Charlottesville thing, but it's like, as Catholics, we're called to love.
Yes.
Stand up for righteousness.
Even in intense situations.
Yeah. That's right. Especially in intense situations. And, well, perhaps justice needs to be served, you know, and it is wrong. The Nazi ideal is wrong, and I won't shy away from saying that.
No.
But it's like, we can't be as bad as the bad guys, you know.
Yes.
We can't fight fire with fire.
Yes. We need to put out the hate with a bit of love.
Exactly. This tea was good.
Yeah, I liked it.
Banana bake.
I would definitely. I'm going to trust your judgment on teas from now on.
And there we go. I appreciate that. Thanks for joining us for the podcast. Keep it Catholic.
God bless. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe.
Make sure that you check us out on our YouTube channel, Auckland Catholic Tertiary Chaplaincy.
You can also find us on Facebook.com/The Chaplains.
And our Instagram account, which is Auckland Catholic Chaplaincy.
We're also now on iTunes. Just search up Gregorian Chat.
Boom.
That's right.
Thanks for listening.
God bless.